Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Dylan Talk Sports. My name is Dylan. In today's video, what I wanted to do is I kind of want to talk about Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. They just had their first game of the college football season, and they got their absolute asses kicked. They lost 34-3 in that game against Georgia. Georgia's another team that everybody can pretty much says is going to be the national championship team at the very end of the season. Clemson is the team that's trying to get back to that level. But what is one thing that kind of separates the two teams? They're both very good teams. They both have a lot of skill. But what is the one thing that kind of really separates the two teams? Georgia has bought into the NIL. They bought into the transfer portal. If players want to transfer out, let them go. If players want to transfer in, please come bring talent to us. Whereas with Clemson, they're a little bit backwards. They are, if you want to transfer out, go right ahead. But when it comes to teams, players trying to transfer into Clemson, he don't want any part in that. There's actually a graphic I'm going to put up on screen right here that you can see when it comes to teams that pretty much take part in the transfer portal, players that are transferring into a team. There is Clemson and then service academies. No offense, but I think we can all understand why players are not transferring from a football school to a service academy. But when it comes to transferring to Clemson, why are people not going to Clemson? Oh, that's right, because Dabo Swinney doesn't believe in transfer portal. He thinks that players, when they commit to a school, they should be there and they should be able to be developed by the coaches. When Dabo gets his hands on you, he's going to develop you, he's going to train you, and he's going to make you into a star. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if it was the year 2010. Like, if this was the 90s, the 2000s, hell, even the 2010s, there's nothing wrong with that. But in the year 2024, you kind of have to buy in and change your philosophy of how you coach a football team and how you recruit, build, develop your players. Now, with all that being said, I kind of want to ask the question of, if Clemson has another bad year, because last year they went, I believe, 9-4. They didn't have the greatest year, but they didn't have a horrible year either. It was like a very mid-year, not on Clemson standards. So the question kind of boils down to, if Clemson goes out there and sucks, and I mean sucks this year, I'm talking 6-6, 5-7, he should be 100% fired. But what if he even goes, like, let's say 8-4, 9-3? Should he even be fired then? There's a lot of info, a lot of news, a lot of discussions, a lot of debates we got to get into. So without further ado, I'm going to go and get straight into this. Now, as always, all information you're going to be seeing on screen whenever it comes to articles, posts, tweets, anything like that, I'll have links to it all down in the description below underneath where it says info. So if you want to go check it out for yourself, feel free. But I'm going to go and get straight into this. So if you're going to enjoy it, as always, make sure you go and drop a like on today's video. Be very much appreciative to do so. But without further ado, let's get into it. Now, like I said, whenever it comes to Clemson and not using the transfer portal, this article was put out back on May 20th of 2024. So this was before the season even started. And he basically was asked about the transfer portal and everything. And he basically said, we've been very consistent whenever it comes to not using the portal. He said back in May, quote, we've been very consistent even the last 3 years. He told CBS Sports, quote, there's a perception, a narrative that gets drummed up that we stink, that we're no good because we haven't made a Final Four. We made it 6 years in a row. It's hard, you know. You got to have a little luck along the way, and we've had some tough breaks, but in that 3-year span, we won 30 games. I guess the question I kind of asked for Dabo Swinney is, why do you think teams that were on your level back then when you were getting to the Final Four, you were getting into the playoffs, you were competing for national championship, the teams like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, these big-time teams that were right there with you, competing for the titles every single year, why are they still on that level now and you're not? Oh, that's right, because the team Georgia that just kicked your ass, you know what happened in their offseason? They had some players transfer out, it happens, but they also had a lot of big-time players transfer in. Because a lot of players went to the NFL, they also had some people transfer out. They had to retool their offense, retool their defense, get a lot of people in there. They went to the NIL, paid for some guys to come to their university, and they built a monster this year. Same thing can be said for Ohio State. Every single year, they always have players transfer out, some players transfer in. This year, they spent about $20 million in NIL money. They are using the NIL to their advantage to help build a team. And same thing with Alabama. They pretty much do both transfer and NIL. People always wanted to come play for Nick Saban. This past season, Nick Saban, he retired. Kalen DeBoer became the head coach, but players, they want to play for Kalen DeBoer, they transferred in. And as we just saw with Alabama, they had a lot, and I mean a lot of players transfer out of Alabama when Nick Saban retired. You know what Alabama did their very first week? They kicked ass. Now, I will say, they did play a bad team. They played, I believe, Western Kentucky, so not exactly the greatest competition in the world. Clemson had to play Georgia, so I will say that. Now, when it comes to the way Clemson and Dabo Swinney is feeling after the game, this was said after the post game, whenever they lost to Georgia. Like I said, after the loss, Swinney was asked about the criticism he will face over not picking up any new talent from the transfer portal this offseason. Swinney has defended Clemson's approach, but said it deserves to be questioned after a performance like the one the team has turned in against Georgia. And he said after the game, quote, we do what's best for Clemson year in and year out. Swinney said after the blowout loss, he said, quote, and when you lose like this, They got every right to say what they want to say. So say whatever you want to say, write whatever you want to write. That comes with it. It's just part of it. Now, here's the problem with Dabo Swinney. Like I said, if they want to live by this philosophy, that's cool. If they want to live in this world of once you're recruited here, they think that you're just stuck here. No, that's not how it works. With the transfer NIL, players are going to go places where they can actually get playing time. The world of where, I've said this in multiple videos in the past whenever it comes to college football, the world where players go to universities and sit for 3+ years doing absolutely nothing because, and according to your words, is they're not good enough to get on the field. Well, if I was playing at a lesser, maybe talented school, even then, it might be a sucky way of getting on the field, but at least I'll get on the field, show that I'm a good football player, and even if I'm going against lesser competition, I've seen a lot of really good players get into the NFL off of these bad schools. When it comes to the NIL, I think these players, when it comes to Dabo Swinney, I think Dabo Swinney has the right attention. He doesn't want to go out and just steal talent. He wants what he wins on the field to be because I made this talent. He doesn't want to be picking and grabbing players like players from Georgia, players from Ohio State, even if it's against like players from smaller schools. He doesn't want to have to like pick and grab talent that maybe were coached up by different coaches. He wants the guys on his field or on his team to be coached by him and to know that these guys are going to do what I want them to do on the field to win football games. Now, kind of wrapping it up, last few things I want to discuss. Like I said, with Dabo Swinney, he's going to have to just suck it up, I think, eventually, and just go in the transfer portal. Because if this is Clemson that's saying, no, we're not doing transfer portal, no NIL, I feel like Dabo has his job secured, but if this is Dabo that's saying this, his job is fucked. Because it's one of these things where I read more into it. It seems like the university is the one saying, no transfer portal, no NIL, we're not buying into this shit. Dabo, do what you can to just keep on winning with the players that you recruit. If that's the case, okay, I guess Dabo's got his job secured because they are not going in NIL. They don't want to do transfer portal. My only question then goes to the athletic director, the university president. Why is this? Like, you see how every other big team from, like I said, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, I'll go even deeper, Penn State, Oregon, I'll go down the list of the bad schools, West Virginia, hell, fucking Vanderbilt. These schools are using NIL. Like, the age of, like I said, recruit and that guy is stuck with you for the next 3 to 4 years is gone. Guys can pick up and run after a year if they want to. And whenever it comes to now the whole way of NIL, it's like you have to almost buy the player. It's not going to be about, well, I'm Dabo Swinney, I got 2 national titles. No, it's going to come down to how big's that checkbook of yours? You got $1 million in there? If so, cool. If not, I'm going over there. Now, I will say this about Clemson. When it comes to this season, their schedule is a little bit rough. I will say that much. Scratch that. I just looked at their schedule. It's pretty weak. They got NC State, which not really that big of a challenge. They got Florida State. They are now 0-2, so they're not really a challenge anymore. You got Wake Forest. You got Louisville. You got Virginia Tech, South Carolina at the end of the season. Yeah, who am I kidding? They're going to probably be in the ACC championship game. But when it comes to Clemson, if they're ever going to get to the next level and be back what they were in 2017, 2018, 2019, during that era, they're going to have to suck it up and go in the transfer portal. Because sure, they might win the ACC this year. They might be the ACC title winner and be a 2C, 3C, 4C, whatever it may be. But when they get to that round of 8 and they're playing a team coming out of that first wave, that first wave team might actually kick their asses. Like, imagine they end up getting paired up against a team like, it's going to only be Georgia or Alabama winning the SEC title game. Imagine one of those teams has to play Clemson. Imagine Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, whoever wins the Big Ten. 2 of those teams out of those 3 are going to be at least in the first wave. One of those 2 might play Clemson. Is Clemson going to be able to handle one of them? There's just a lot to think about whenever it comes to Clemson. And like I said, if this is Dabo Swinney choosing not to do transfers and not do NIL, your ass is getting fired. But if this is the university that's saying this and they don't want to do it, and I almost wonder if this is the university that's saying no NIL, no transfer, how does Dabo feel behind the scene? Because I would like to think if he wants the NIL and the transfer portal and the university is the one saying no, why doesn't Dabo just go somewhere else? Final thing I'll pretty much say, whenever it comes to the transfer portal, NIL, when it comes to Clemson, like I said, if they don't use the transfer portal, they're not going anywhere. They're not winning a national title this year. They're definitely not going to win another national title in the future. Dabo Swinney, your career is fucked. If you do not go in the transfer portal and don't use NIL, you're fucked. But other than that, I think I'm going to wrap up there. Hopefully, guys did go and enjoy today's video. If you did enjoy it, as always, make sure you go and drop a like on today's video. be very much appreciated if you do so. If you wanted to watch the entirety of today's video, thank you very much. And like I said, if you have a different opinion, do you agree or disagree with anything I said? Do you think Dabo Swinney and Clemson Tigers need to use the NIL and use the transfer portal in order to be successful? If you're a Clemson fan, you're seeing this video, do you think they need to use the NIL and transfer portal? Do you think they will be fine without it? Whatever your opinion may be, leave a complete opinion down in the comment section down below. I'd be more welcome to talk about with you guys. If you're a fan of the content that I do poster and you want to go and hit that big red subscribe button, feel free to do so. And you don't forget to hit that little notification bell to be notified the second I post. But without further ado, this has been Dabo Sports. Have a great day. Peace.